17-year-old Gladys Ariano lived in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, in 1996. She was beautiful, intelligent, and had big dreams for her life. Gladys was last seen on January 28, 1996, leaving her home. When she failed to return home later in the day, she was reported missing by her family. 2 days later, her body was found off a main road in a ravine in Topanga Canyon. She had been assaulted and strangled. Forensic evidence was collected from her body, and a DNA profile of the unknown offender was uploaded to state and federal DNA databases. However, a match could not be found. An extensive investigation was conducted by the investigators at the time, but it led nowhere, and the case went cold. That was until 2019 when Los Angeles police arrested a man by the name of Jose Luis Garcia for domestic assault. During the booking process, DNA swabs were taken from Garcia and processed. Investigators then realized that his DNA matched the DNA that was taken from Gladys's body in 1996. The crime took place when he was just 19 years old. They obtained a second DNA swab from him. The Los Angeles Crime Lab was then able to confirm that Garcia's genetic profile matched the unidentified sample taken from Gladys's body in 1996. 43-year-old Jose Luis Garcia was arrested by U.S. Marshals on September 29, 2019, in Dallas, Texas. He was extradited on October 14 to Los Angeles County, where he was held on a $1 million bail. Detective Hugo Rega said, "This case is typical of the type of cases that unsolved detectives are faced with on a daily basis. We are gratified that we were successful in bringing this tragic case to a close." Rega confirmed that investigators were looking into the possibility that Garcia was involved in other crimes as well. Gladys's niece and goddaughter Samantha Marino spoke movingly of the need to remember her godmother, as well as all other women who were victims of violence. "Recognizing her life is important. Beautiful Latina souls from Boyle Heights should never be forgotten," Moreno said. "Acts of violence against women should never be forgotten." Samantha Moreno thanked the detectives who never lost sight of finding justice. Gladys Ariano's case was worked on by retired detectives Joe Purcell and Sean McCarthy, who both work part-time on the Sheriff's Department's Unsolved Case Unit. "Thank you for not giving up on our Gladys, who was a loving daughter, sister, aunt, and godmother." Gladys was only 17 when her life was taken. She had a beautiful soul. She was beautiful, intelligent, gorgeous, and she had a radiant smile. "She had such big dreams for her life. My grandparents would have been so proud of her," Moreno said. She was grateful Garcia was off the streets after nearly a quarter century. "We want nothing more than for him to pay for his brutal crime," she said. "We recognize that this will not bring Gladys back, but we are relieved to know that there will be justice for Gladys. This is a victory that we acknowledge in her honor, and we look forward to more victories." Jose Luis Garcia was found guilty of all the charges against him on July 18, 2023. It was a day the loved ones of Gladys Ariano had been waiting decades for. "It is never enough for having taken the life of such a beautiful soul," said Elizabeth Ariano of her sister Gladys. Gladys Ariano's sister and best friend told the court that what Garcia did nearly destroyed them, as they wondered for more than 25 years what happened to her. "It was tough, but it felt really good to finally get it off your chest and actually see him and release it and have some kind of comfort," said Vanessa Ariano. Gladys Ariano's younger sister, Janet Ramirez, said the plea deal gives her some comfort, but it is not enough. 19 years is never enough, but I have comfort knowing now she can rest, and that the perpetrator is going to be behind bars, because for 25 years, I've lived with the guilt of not knowing what I could have done differently, Ramirez said. Jose Garcia was sentenced on August 15, 2023, to 18 years and 8 months in prison for taking Gladys's life. Garcia pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter, kidnapping, and domestic assault, according to the district attorney's office. He waived his credit for the just over 1,000 days he has spent in jail since his 2020 arrest. Retired Sheriff's Detective Joe Purcell handled the cold case investigation. The fact is that we can give justice to people and to society. It is really important not to let these cases go unresolved. We need to have people pay the debt they owe to society, he said. Cheryl Monique Taylor lived in Weldon, North Carolina in 2002. She had married John Osby from high school, and they had one daughter named Justice who was 7 years old at the time. On August 16, 2002, she woke up and realized Cheryl hadn't woken her in time for school bus stop, so Justice missed it and went back into Cheryl's bedroom, only to discover someone had taken Cheryl's life. Autopsy results revealed Justice had been strangled and likely assaulted, though details about any signs of forced entry or any possible evidence belonging to her perpetrator have never been made public. Although authorities conducted extensive investigations, no arrests were ever made, and the case went cold. Grieving partners John and Justice continued grieving together for 17 more years after her passing. John Osby went missing in December 2019 and was later found shot and covered with a blanket near Sycamore Street in Weldon. Investigators were unable to track down who shot him, leaving his family with unanswered questions as to his whereabouts and the fate of Cheryl Taylor and John Osby. Sheriff Tyree Davis made a change when, in January 2023, he hired Detective Sergeant Samoji as Halifax County's dedicated cold case investigator. Detective Samoji began by studying John Osby's case before realizing Cheryl's life had been taken by someone years earlier. On July 21, 2023, 46-year-old Lewis Turner Jr. of Northampton County in North Carolina was arrested and charged with the voluntary manslaughter of Cheryl Taylor. It remains unknown as of yet whether or not Turner is also responsible for shooting John Osby. It has, however, come to light that Turner was known to Cheryl and her family in 2002 when he killed Cheryl, age 25 at the time he committed this act. It also has 2 criminal assault charges from when he was younger that resulted in probation being issued against him after his arrest. After being charged, he was held at Halifax County Jail under a $250,000 bond until further notice to appear before court hearing. Scott Hall, patrol captain for the Halifax County Sheriff's Office, explained why voluntary manslaughter charges had been leveled against this incident. This was not premeditated or malicious killing based on facts of this case or elements of its crime, therefore we charged accordingly. Sheriff Tyree Davis expressed his emotions by sharing that arresting a suspect for Cheryl's case brought tears of joy. I received the call that we were able to close one of our cold cases dating back over 20 years. No one knew, and until we informed her family, we couldn't say anything. When I found out the news, I was immediately overcome by emotion and tears began streaming down my cheeks. As a member of the State Commission, I sat front row alongside other board members, trying my best to keep myself together by wiping away tears as they came. Once my sniffles began surfacing, though, I knew I needed to leave. Folks, I can assure you that these tears were tears of joy and excitement, not only for M. Taylor's family, but also her friends, co-workers, schoolmates, and anyone she has crossed paths with before. Additionally, this beacon of hope serves as a beacon for other families that require closure as well. Justice Osby, Cheryl's daughter, expressed her sentiments upon hearing of Turner's arrest by saying it was an amazing feeling and she never expected it. Justice extended her gratitude to those involved with helping bring Turner to justice by saying, "Today is such a good day, thank you all." Laura Kempton was 23 years old in 1981 when she lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. She attended Portsmouth Beauty School while also working at Macro Polo Gift Store and Karen's Ice Cream Parlor. Laura was known as an outgoing free spirit with an outsized personality who enjoyed socializing. Laura was last seen entering her Chapel Street apartment alone during the early morning hours of September 28, 1981. A police officer serving a court summons for unpaid parking tickets found Laura's body hours later, upon making his way up to her residence and discovering a wooden panel piece had come loose from its hinge, creating an opening through which he could see Laura lying dead just inside her apartment. Autopsies showed that she died shortly after entering her apartment, suffering massive trauma to the left side of her head, including skull fractures, lacerations, and contusions on her brain. Additionally, she had been assaulted, which allowed DNA evidence collection from her body as well as evidence from the crime scene itself. Investigators collected other evidentiary items at this location. Interviews of other residents at Laura's apartment complex yielded no useful information, and the case ultimately fizzled out. In 1986, investigators revealed they had interrogated Ronald Spock about Laura's death after learning he had also killed 2 other women in Boston, Massachusetts. Spock denied any involvement. Portsmouth police, however, were monitoring his case closely and reviewing any criminal allegations made against him. Only Ronald Spiewak, being from nearby NH, gave a strong nudge in that direction. But this alone wasn't a strong link either. Spock had met his victims, Gina Quare and Kathleen McGuire, on 2 separate occasions in Boston and admitted later to ending their lives, though at first he claimed each time was self-defense based. Spock strangled both women before disposing of them in various locations, Gina in an abandoned railway car near South Boston, and Kathleen near an information booth on Interstate 95 near Kittery, Maine. No real links between Laura's case and that of Dina Kittler were ever discovered, but 2 Portsmouth detectives attending a conference in Florida at that time listened intently as an investigator from the Naval Investigative Service described its investigation into Dina Kittler. Dina was assaulted and strangled with rope at her Mayport, Florida home in December 1990, with signs of intense struggle being visible throughout her home, as well as numerous hair clumps which had been cut off in the bathtub. Her naval officer husband had been deployed at the time of Dina's death. Portsmouth Police Captain James Tucker could hardly believe what he heard. Dina's case bore a striking resemblance to Michelle Leon's murder in New Hampshire, and authorities had already arrested someone named John Brewer as being involved with Dina's case. John Brewer had been released shortly after his arrest due to insufficient physical evidence. However, as more details emerged concerning Michelle Leon's case in Dublin, New Hampshire, Brewer was brought back into custody and held without charge. Soon, Portsmouth investigators were able to establish a link between Brewer and Michelle Leon. James Tucker found in records an application John Brewer had filled out listing Gary Leon as his reference. This led directly back to Michelle herself. Police identified John Brewer as being involved in both cases based on DNA evidence taken from hairs collected during the Kittler case and DNA sample collected for Leon case. Based on this discovery, Brewer was charged and brought before court for both. News of Brewer's indictment spread quickly across the Granite State, prompting reports that she had links to 3 additional cases, 2 in Portsmouth and 1 in Florida. At the time of Laura Kempton's murder, Brewer was living in New Hampshire, but his actions seemed distinct from those of New Hampshire natives. Unfortunately, no correlations could ever be drawn. Perhaps this was just an inference based on his arrest being performed by detectives from Portsmouth. Rumors in Portsmouth of what happened to Laura swirled about 2 young men known as drug suppliers. These individuals had appeared on police logs with various offenses before becoming more violent in nature. Thomas Faraghi led one such operation that escalated to far more brazen criminal activity. Faraghi had been arrested several times for assaulting women before being indicted in March 1982 for fatally shooting 24-year-old Valerie Blair of Rye at Odiorn State Park after she had been hit with 5 shots fired from a .22 caliber pistol. She had found her in Odiorn State Park with 5 bullet wounds to her head and face from Faraghi's operation. Thomas Faraghi remained in prison for years while maintaining his innocence of Valerie Blair's murder, attributing it to one of his associates whom he believes must have stolen his gun. Later in an interview, Faraghi suggested the same man may have killed Laura Kempton too. Faraghi claimed she was one of their customers, and one of their employees became upset after seeing Laura kiss someone while they were conducting business at her apartment, while they were there conducting transactions. In 1982, his girlfriend attended Portsmouth Beauty School together with Laura Kempton. Faraghi's DNA was collected, but never charged further than this incident. Instead, police looked into and cleared one suspect from Faraghi's accusations in both cases before moving on with their cases until far later cases against them was cleared as being responsible. On July 20, 2023, investigators finally released an important update. Laura's case had finally been solved after 42 years. Officials identified Ronnie James Lee as her perp. He resided and worked in Portsmouth. Rachel Harrington, Assistant Attorney General, stated there is no indication Lee knew Laura Kempton personally. Lee served in the U.S. Army from May 15, 1981 until May 15, 1982, before taking up employment at MBI Security at Liberty Mutual of Portsmouth from June 1981 through August 1982. Lee provided his mother's address on Rock Hill Avenue in Portsmouth when arrested by Portsmouth police for attempted theft on November 8, 1982. Lee was arrested and pleaded guilty to 4 residential and 1 commercial burglaries during 1983. 2 of these burglaries he pled guilty to in 1987. Additionally, Lee was convicted on assault charges stemming from a burglary committed in Keene, New Hampshire, that included assaulting a female resident in her own home during this incident. Lee was sentenced to prison from December 1987 until July 1990 and ultimately passed away after overdosing on February 9, 2005, at age 45. Attorney General officials stated that were Lee still alive, he would face first-degree charges of endangering Laura during an attempt at aggravated felonious assault and striking her with an object believed to be a wine bottle. Investigators used genetic genealogy techniques to identify Lee. Physical evidence at the scene in 1981 yielded male DNA profiles. Officials stated that starting in 2022, Portsmouth police have collaborated with the New Hampshire State Police Forensic Laboratory, Maine State Police Forensic Laboratory, Attorney General's Cold Case Unit and Genetic Genealogy Research Organization, Identifiers International, collaborated in conducting forensic genetic genealogy to identify Lee as the donor of DNA found at the crime scene. Since he no longer lives, this case can now be considered closed and solved. Laura's family issued the following statement upon hearing of its resolution. We wish to extend our sincerest appreciation and thanks for solving Laura's case through Portsmouth Police Department. Their dedication and hard work, along with decades of personal commitment, has brought Laura to this point in time. Family would like to extend a sincere thank you to retired Captain John Parash and the Portsmouth Police Department Investigative Division team, members past and present, for all their hard work on Laura's case, which led to this important moment today. Their tireless dedication made this momentous event possible. Over the last 41 years, numerous other hands have touched Laura's file, and we express our profound thanks for all your contributions. At this time, however, the Kempton family requests privacy as we process this information. Thank you to all. Law enforcement officials have stated in the past that Laura's case and Tammy Little's death in Portsmouth in 1982 could possibly be linked. When asked by reporters about Tammy, Attorney General John Formella responded that it is still under investigation, while for Little he stated, "Our hope is that what we announce today may provide additional insight into that investigation." Tammy Little had not been heard from since Sunday evening, after friends dropped her off from a night out at Portsmouth Beauty School. Friends had seen her arriving home after the event, after an overnight party on Saturday evening, and dropping her off in her Maplewood Avenue apartment, after spending Saturday night out together. No one knew why Tammy would remain unreachable for so long. When something appeared wrong, it became evident. Tammy's mother decided to check in on her daughter at Maplewood Avenue apartment and discovered an unspeakably traumatizing sight. Her lifeless body in their apartment, where they had been severely beaten on by someone. Authorities quickly responded when Tammy's mother called them about the case at 315 Maplewood Avenue. Investigators collected physical evidence from within her home, as well as interviewing nearby neighbors before conducting an autopsy the following day, which revealed she had died of massive head injuries caused by being viciously struck on the head with something. As Tammy's family and friends mourned her tragic death, many residents in her city found themselves living under an aura of unease. Many residents' worst fears had seemingly come true, and an air of uncertainty filled the neighborhood. Again it had happened. Another girl, another crime, and no arrests made. Laura and Tammy share much more in common than just how their lives ended. Tammy and Laura lived alone in ground-level apartments in Portsmouth and attended the Portsmouth Beauty School. Both women attended modeling agencies to try to secure work. Both women were outgoing, frequented some of the same bars downtown, and tragically both died on an autumn weekend day, only 1 mile apart from one another. DNA will soon provide answers as to whether Ronnie James Lee also played a part in taking Tammy Little's life.